moment you leave church, they going back to their old ways, bro. You wouldn't even tell. The same people that will be posting all these Bible verses and all this other stuff. And then if you met them, you would never tell that they're Christian, bro. You will never know. You would never know.
And the ones that bother me the most are the ones of people filming themselves praying or worshiping. And, you know, I've seen plenty of other types of people crying or people rebuking Satan or doing spiritual warfare in their homes and whatever. But the ones that really do bother me the most are the ones videoing, this is how I pray, this is how I worship, or I was just doing something and then I got caught in spontaneous worship. What I think is a huge problem, and while these things bother me and it's kind of a nuanced situation, is because with the age of social media, it can make the lines very blurred. Like, you know, if the Bible says certain things are supposed to be done in private or certain things are supposed to be done in public, and prayer and worship are encouraged to be communal things, it can make it hard separating online community and real community. Because if the Bible says we're supposed to worship as a church body or we're supposed to worship as a body of Christ, and your thought process is, well, then I'm going to post a video of me worshiping, and because that's my community online. And I think people can have really well-intending motives, but get a little lost sometimes in what should be posted online and what shouldn't. Because posting can feel like you're adding to a community. And I completely understand that so many people treat their online presences and online personalities as more important and more real than their real life community and real life presence. And it's hard to see the consequences of putting intimate parts of yourself or your relationship with God online. I don't think that most people posting about prayer, posting about worship videos are being fake. I think it's probable sometimes, but I don't think that that's every person. And I do believe, I would like to believe too, giving people the benefit of the doubt, that maybe they really are posting their prayer or their worship to encourage other people. And I get it. It's not about really the posting of the videos, but more about what that can do to us, what that can train the viewer to want to crave or to think is real life. And I think it just often encourages things that are not of God, even if the intent is to just share with your community or to share that you're worshiping or share that you're praying. And so, when we look at what does God say about prayer, first off, he pretty intensely condemns performative prayer. It says in Matthew 6, 5-8, "And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you would need before you ask him." So clearly, Jesus condemns the motive of praying to be seen, right? Now, so it forces us to ask, if you're the person posting that video, who is this for? Because I do see some creators, their whole platform is posting, this is my prayer for you today. And it's them filming themselves praying for people online. And I don't know that it's inherently wrong to do that. I appreciate the heart if that's what it really is. But my question is, why can't you pray for those people, pray the exact same prayer, but without the camera? Because if prayer is meant to be done in secret or with a community of people, I have to think, since the Bible was written at a time when this didn't exist, it must mean actually in communion with people, in real life, physically next to you. And that if they're not, we shouldn't be recording ourselves. Because if we think about it, my thought process is, since social media didn't exist back then, when the Bible was written, their version of in public was standing on the street corner, when our version in public just means filming ourselves on our phone and posting it. Do you see what I'm saying? So while it may not be inherently wrong, and while your motive or the people's motives for posting prayer videos may be good, I don't know that it is biblical. Because if we're supposed to go in our room and shut the door and pray to God, I think also, even if you have the greatest motives, it opens you up to temptation, because you're seeing all the likes, you're seeing all the comments, you're seeing all of the things. And for a lot of people, making money off of these views for praying, it's like monetizing your prayers. And I think that's really different than monetizing Christian content like this. This is something that is clearly said, unless you are praying in a group of people or in a church body, you're supposed to go in your room and shut your door. That doesn't feel like something that should be monetized. And I also think it's different, like, if I see someone post on their Instagram story, like, just text, like, picture with a text of being like, hey, guys, if you see this, I am praying for you for blah, 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 blah. Okay, that feels different than filming your face and posting a video of you praying. It just feels like, even with the best intentions, you are setting yourself up to be tempted. And if we are supposed to remove ourselves from temptation and not even get close to being tempted, and no one is outside of being tempted by social media. No one is above being tempted by views, by likes, by comments. That, like, we're incapable of that. We're too human, we're too fleshy, okay? You're gonna be tempted if you're doing that. Like, every influencer ever has spoken about the temptation of wanting to monetize their faith and, like, do things for the views instead of for God. That's just going to happen. So it's not that, like, Jesus doesn't ban public prayer, and it may not be inherently wrong to post a video of you praying, but when I see that, it makes me question, but are you doing this for you or are you doing it for God? Like, are you getting paid from this? And then isn't this setting yourself up for temptation? And it's not that, like, our faith isn't supposed to be visible, because we are supposed to pray in community. We're supposed to worship in community. Like, we're supposed to have visible faith. But again, it's Jesus exposes performative hearts. It's not that it's to be seen. It's not that you can't post about Jesus online or, like, talk about him online. Clearly it's fine because I'm doing it. Not that I'm the benchmark, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't be condemning this and then also doing it. It'd be so hypocritical. It's not that, like, people can't see you pray or people can't see you worship or talk about God. It's about why you're doing it. And when you're posting a video of praying, especially the ones when it's like people on their knees in their living room, and it's like, you set up a tripod to film that, though. Like, you had to go get a tripod to prop up your phone to then get on your knees and film yourself pray and then watch it back and post it. And at what point, like, how there's got to have been some conviction there. It's really hard for me to believe that that is 100% not performative. And again, it's possible. I'm not saying that if you've seen a creator do this, that they're wrong and awful and you should unfollow them, but I'm saying it's something to be wary of. Like, if you are tempted to post something like that, ask yourself why. What are you getting out of this, and what is the viewer getting out of this? When I see someone praying on my TikTok, I don't feel encouraged. And maybe that's bad, but, like, if I see someone on their hands and knees praying, I don't think, wow, they're such a good Christian. I think that's concerning because why did they post that? And then it's like, I think it opens up the door for a lot of comparison of, like, well, that's not how I pray. Is the way I pray wrong? I don't lay on my face on the floor. Am I praying wrong? Like, I think it just opens up a lot of concerns. And I'm going to say this a million times. It doesn't mean it's inherently wrong, but it does have it gives me a lot of concern. Okay, because it is really hard to do that and not cause problems for yourself and for the viewer. You know, we are supposed to break bread and pray with each other, because it says in Acts 2:42, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. Obviously, we're supposed to be unified in prayer with other people. If you're in a small group, if you're, with a group of women, if you're with a group of whoever, and you all want to pray together, that's great. Do that. Pray for people constantly. That's something I want to get better at, is, like, when people tell me, like, oh, I'm struggling with this, to stop and be like, let me pray for you. I want to be better at that. Not because it's going to make me look good, but because it's something we're supposed to do as believers, is to pray for each other. Even if I see comments on my YouTube all the time of people being like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or hey, I need prayer in this. And I will stop, I will pray for them, and then I usually will respond like, hey, I'm praying for you. And so that they feel loved and seen. Like, that is something that believers are supposed to do. But what I'm not going to do is take a video of myself praying for them and then send it to them. Because that's weird. Like, maybe it's not completely wrong, but it's certainly weird, and certainly is, like, way more about my glory than God's glory to video myself praying for someone else when that's supposed to be between me and God. It just feels weird, okay? And, it says in 1 Timothy 2:1-2. First of all, then I urge that supplications, prayer, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. Clearly, praying for people is good. Thanksgivings, intercessions, supplications, prayers to be made for all people, especially for people who are kings and in high positions, which that's kind of a side note. I feel like we don't do that as like praying for the leaders of our country as much as we certainly need to constantly for all the time. But anyway, praying for other people is a huge part of the Christian walk and what we are supposed to do. It's good for us, it's good for them, it's good for our relationship with God, but it's not supposed to be on the street corner videoed. When we look at Jesus's example for prayer between him and God, it says in Mark 1:35, and rising very early in the morning while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. This is outside of communal prayer. He went away to a desolate place and prayed to his Father. But then he does pray in front of other people in John 11:41-42. It says, so they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. Jesus is thanking God and praying publicly so that people believe, for the belief of others, not for Jesus's image, not for his own glory, even though he does get all the glory because he's Jesus. It's not for his image. It's not to make him look better. It's for the belief of other people. So if you're praying for someone else, or you're praying to God for other people to see and believe, that's one thing. But again, it's the heart posture. And I do understand there's a level of which when we see people doing things, other Christians, like we're not going to 100% know their heart. Like that's why I've been saying like the disclaimer of when I see this on TikTok or Instagram, I'll never fully know their heart, whether they were really trying to do it out of good motivations or they were doing it for self-glorification, right? I'm not going to 100% know because only God knows the hearts of man, right? But when we look at fruit and when we look at the rest of their life, how does it line up? Like, that's what I'm saying. If you see someone online who generally is like full of fruit, who you can tell really loves God, and they post a video like that, maybe it was really well-meaning. It doesn't mean that there's still not concerns with the temptation and what it's going to look like to others, because we're supposed to be above reproach, but it's always been about heart posture. Like everything always is about heart posture. That's how it is. God cares so much more about why we do it than what we do. It says in Amos, going to Old Testament, as context for this chunk of verse, the people of Israel were worshiping and praying to God. But it was while they had been exploiting the poor, all of their courts were corrupt, the needy were trampled for profit. This is all throughout the book of Amos leading up to this. And then it says in Amos 5:23-24, take away from me the noise of your songs, to the melody of your harps I will not listen, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. So it's not that God doesn't like worship or that he just rejected their worship because he felt like it. It's because of how they treated people. It's because of their hearts that they were worshiping God while treating his people like garbage. So it's like that was not real worship because they weren't even acting like, they had no fruit. They weren't acting like Christians, acting like people of God. With worship too, like worship is supposed to be communal. Worship is supposed to be every part of our life, but music worship, singing worship, praise and worship is supposed to be seen by others. It says in Psalm 34:3, oh, magnify the Lord with me and let us exalt his name together. Worship is meant to be seen by other people because it's supposed to be done in community. That doesn't mean you can't sing worship songs by yourself, obviously, but a large part of the point of worship is to do it communally. But it's not supposed to be centered on yourself. And it's not supposed to be, I just don't think it's supposed to be recording yourself worshiping in your house. And I do think, again, disclaimer, I think that there is a difference between the girls or guys that film TikToks where they're like, hey, I wrote this worship song, or I'm playing it on the piano and singing and I wrote this, or I just wanted to sing this and share. And like, when I listen to that, I do feel edified by that because I love listening to worship music. I love hearing someone else sing and worshiping God. I think that's different than the ones that set up the tripod and are just like wandering around their house worshiping. And it's like, okay, there's a difference between I'm sitting down to film this, to share with my online community, to edify them, so that they can maybe sing along with me, so that they can listen to it, whatever. That is different from, I feel like a very different posture from setting up a tripod and being like, look at how I worship in my house. Do you see what I'm saying? And again, it doesn't mean recording is always bad. It doesn't mean that visibility is always bad or people seeing you, but it's in the heart posture. And I have a very difficult time believing that your heart posture is good when you're filming yourself praying and worshiping around your house, because you set up a tripod, and it seems like what else could the point be other than to give yourself glory? And so, yeah, wanting to share or inspire is an honorable intention. And I've seen comments of people being like, I just post worship to encourage others, or I've been encouraged by other people's prayer videos. And I think that that's possible. But it's like, okay, but what does recording this over time do to your heart? Does it condition you to want to pray on camera because of the likes and the views and the comments? Does it condition you to look at your prayer life as monetization? And does it cause comparison for the viewer to be like, but I don't worship like that, but I don't pray like that? Like, is it actually encouragement, or is it you trying to put yourself on a shelf to be seen? And so, this isn't cause to, every time you see a video like that, leave a hate comment. Please don't do that. But it is like practical application for when you see that stuff. I would say pray for them. Like, if you see a prayer video, if you see a worship video where it gives you that like weird feeling, pray for your heart and theirs. Like what I would do is pray like, God, if this is done out of a selfish and prideful heart, I pray that you would convict them of it.